Hello, welcome to Women in Action, and I am super excited to be interviewing Meghan Rae. Whenever I meet someone who is a Christian and a creative, I get really excited. So you're in for an absolute treat for this episode. So grab your cup of tea or coffee or anything like that, and let's get stuck in. But before we get stuck in, I want to tell you about a workshop that I'm doing very soon. It's happening on July the 20th. So let's watch it.
Have you ever thought of writing a book? Perhaps it's a novel or a non-fiction or an autobiography or even a children's book. But then you feel stuck. What am I going to write? And you stare at the blank screen or page wondering, will it make sense or am I just kidding myself? What if I told you I wrote this book in 2 hours? I had some ideas in my head, but no real structure. I was scared that my grammar, vocabulary, stories would let me down and people wouldn't understand the stories that I told about the clients I saw around the world. But with the help of AI, I wrote a book about how I use my speech language therapy skills around the world. I believe you also have a book inside you, desperate to come out. So if you want to get over that writer's block, then join me for a 3-hour workshop on Saturday the 20th of July. Places are limited, so book your place soon.
Okay, so Meghan Rae is a passionate artist and storyteller whose journey of faith and healing has inspired many. Since 2014, she's been sharing her personal experiences and artwork, encouraging others to find light in dark places and reconnect with their God-given identity. Rediscovering her artistic talent through the Milan Art Institute in 2020, Meghan combines visual art and heartfelt storytelling to bring hope, healing, and encouragement to those she encounters. Her work is deeply rooted in her Christian faith, which serves as the foundation for her mission to uplift and inspire others on their journey towards wholeness. So, welcome, Meghan. Really excited to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Bev.
So, tell everyone where you're from, because I'm here in the UK and you're over the pond.
That's right. I am right in the middle of the United States in Kansas.
Yeah, lovely to connect with you. And one thing, I think we connected about talking about Christian art journaling, about art in general, and how we combine our faith with art. So I'm just fascinated with people who are creative, and so I know this has been a journey for you, and a journey of rediscovering and sort of developing your artistic talent as an adult through the Milan Art Institute. So how did this experience shape your approach to art and storytelling?
Oh, goodness. What a great question. Well, I actually started and I signed up to begin with the Milan Art Institute as an adult in 2020. So a tiny bit of backstory. I had pursued it in college. And then we had moved out of the country and I had agreed to stop going to college for art and we pursued some other things. And it had been a really long road, and getting ready for the new session starting in 2020, I signed up in 2019, having no idea what was about to happen, in our world over here and everywhere. And then COVID happened and I was at home I had built my own easel. That's part of the program there. They're really a fantastic group. If you ever want to look them up or know someone who wants to jump in and go on that really creative journey and learn a lot, Milan Art Institute is really great. But built my own easel, first thing I ever built with my own 2 hands, and got going in my in-home studio. Started doing the classwork and was also helping my kids because they were schooling from computers during that time. So it was a very interesting year. We were all in school. We were all learning, living in a really tiny space. It was interesting to say the least, but majorly stretching for me. I grew so much. I tried things for the very first time. I'd never oil painted in my whole life, and the whole first, I guess you'd say semester, but section of the program was oil painting. I was so intimidated, and I just learned so much. This over here is actually my first oil painting, this bird. You there, Bev? I don't see you.
Sorry.
That's okay. Here you are.
Yeah. So I was talking about your faith and your healing.
Yeah.
And, you know, your work sort of intertwines faith and healing, doesn't it?
Totally.
So can you share a specific moment or a piece of art that sort of represents your faith journey and
Yes,
the impact it's had on your life?
totally. I mean, I've got a bunch here behind me, and they all have pieces of that. But one that comes to mind, actually, I painted it after I had a very vivid dream. And for me personally, it felt like that really might have been something from God, this dream that I had. It did not feel like my own idea. So I would love to, there it is. That's the horse I painted after having this dream. So I would love to share that if that's okay, because it really answers that question of how I came to make room for this in my life and allow, you know, not only just try and pursue art and make beautiful things, but to say, God, how can you actually take the things that are hard, the things that I'm carrying, the things that are burdensome, and infuse that like into the art with also your truth, your beauty, your hope. Like we don't have to choose one or the other. Like there's for both. Very much led me into that space. So the dream that I had, just hold on for this ride because it was so interesting. I had this dream that I walked into a horse stable and I saw a mother horse and her brand new baby horse, foal, I guess you would say. This baby was brand new, so fragile, brand new little life. And the stable was so incredibly cramped. They were like visibly uncomfortable in there. There was no room at all. And I got very nervous for that little baby, thinking, gosh, there's no room in here. Like, can't move. It's going to get like, the mom's going to crush it or something. Like, I need to help. I need to fix this. So I scoop up this baby horse and run it upstairs in this home that I'm in. And I go into what I believe is a bedroom, and I place the horse on the floor, like, I'm going to give you some space. And then I close the door, and all of a sudden I'm extremely busy. Okay. People need my help. Someone needs a ride. Someone is calling me with an issue. Something happens that takes my attention, and I need to go here and do this and help this person and do that, which I think is also a common experience for human beings. But as a woman, I'm thinking about women right now. Like, I think that's a common experience we can have is there are things to tend to, but oh my gosh, I'm so busy. And in this case, I'm kind of talking about like my calling or healing or both. I think actually those are intertwined a lot of time, healing and calling. So in the dream, I'm so busy. And the last thing that was happening is I'm helping someone who's having an issue with their car, which now you know it's a dream because I don't know anything about cars. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, we need to do this. We need to do that. No. This would not happen in real life. But I was so busy, and all of a sudden it dawned on me. I just suddenly had a moment of like revelation. Oh, I have left this brand new little baby horse back in this room. I don't know if it's okay. Is it even alive? And I just stopped everything and said, I'm so sorry, I can't help you. I need to go back and take care of something. So I ran back to the house, went inside, ran up the stairs, so nervous about it. Opened the door. This poor little baby horse is like, has stuff stuck to it. I think it got into some things. Maybe it tried to walk and it stumbled. It looks tangled in some things and it's shaking and it's afraid. And it's so alone. And so I clean it up a little and pick it up and I take it directly back out to the stables. And this time, I think this is the most important part of the dream. This time when I walk into the stable, the space where the mother is huge. It's beautiful. It has fresh hay all over it. Sun is coming in through windows. It is lovely. And there's space and there's room. And I laid the baby down next to the mom and they just had a moment of connection and what was supposed to happen all along. And take that for what it's worth. But for me, it really felt like God was saying to me, there are things that, Meghan, that you have tucked away or set aside that maybe don't fit in the neat and tidy box of your faith. I went through a lot of trauma as a child, then experienced more as an adult and in relationship. And it's been a very, very painful journey, one that in my personal experience, I couldn't figure out, well, how does that fit with everything that I've heard and known and been learning about who Jesus is to us? Does this fit? Like, do I just need to like keep it over here? And I felt like he was telling me, no, there's room. Actually, there's room. So I felt like ultimately that dream was revealing to me multiple things, but the most important being that Jesus himself actually is the only place in the entire universe where our brokenness and our true identity can sit like together. So even like on the cross, Jesus held all of our brokenness, all of our sin, and all of the full potential of our redemption, cleanliness, holiness in Christ, through Christ. He held both in the same place, in the same tragic, glorious moment. And I felt like he was saying, it's time to integrate. It's time to let me work through those hard places. You be yourself, start to let some of this out, and then lay my truth right down next to it. And I will do beautiful things. Like, you don't need to compartmentalize your life. You don't need to take a part of yourself and push it away because it's not really fitting with maybe the sermon you heard on Sunday in terms of who Jesus is. I think he is so much more, I mean, words fail, but compelling.
Yeah, that really speaks to me, because I know
Yeah.
last year was a really difficult year for me on lots of levels, and it seemed like lots of people in my life were breaking in some form, you know, whether physically or mentally or spiritually or, you know, whatever. It seemed to be one thing after another, and God used that as a way of, one thing sort of like holding me close to him and trusting him through all this brokenness that was happening around me, and keeping me strong. But also he wanted to use those broken moments as a way of healing, and in through using art. And I know I did a retreat last year, a weekend retreat, and women came from Holland and around UK and the island to it, and the topic was on brokenness. And one of the things he taught me was about that, you know, that kintsugi kind of way of art where you get broken pottery and you put it together and you fix it with golden blue or whatever it's called, I don't know, and then it becomes more precious than it was before. And that's what we create, not with pottery, we created it with art, and we had gold combining these pieces together. And I think God makes those broken moments quite precious to him, really, and to us. We learn things through it, and he can use them to help others. And yeah, I was just thinking about some of your art, you know, and I'm sure that people have kind of like been moved by your art and the words that you write underneath them. And I was just thinking, can you kind of describe like a moment or some particular transformative feedback that you got from someone that you've helped with your
Yeah.
art?
Yes. So one thing I'm learning is to choose to be vulnerable myself and put those things out there that maybe God is teaching me, and hard places that I'm going through with him. I mean, his name, one of his many beautiful names is Emmanuel, God with us. That's what I think of when I think of like that whole kintsugi like concept, is the fact that God is with us in those places, and then what he can do in those places. So this painting, the horse I forgot to mention, it's called Belonging, just because
Mm-hmm.
we can find belonging, our brokenness can find belonging in Christ. And then this one, the girl with the roses and the light coming through a broken place. I had painted this, and one of my my coach at the Milan Art Institute had told me she felt like this was like a breakthrough piece for me, because I had dug deep and painted something from my heart and what I felt like God was teaching me. And it was a really beautiful experience to create this painting. And then I sold a print of it to someone, and they ended up reaching out to me later, and they had bought it on behalf of a young girl, teenager, who was struggling with both an eating disorder and some suicidal thoughts, just really, really struggling. And it makes me kind of emotional, but I heard from him. He reached out to me and just expressed how this was impacting her, this image, that actual new life and beauty can come out of the exact place of brokenness that we are in. It's not, how do I stop being myself and become someone else and escape everything happening so that I can feel joy or love or peace or new life. It's actually, does God want to do that right now in me with exactly what I'm dealing with? Could beauty and new life actually come out of that place? Like, whatever people are thinking right now, you might have lost someone, you might struggle with some of the same things that this teenager was struggling with, or any number of things. And it's like, can beauty and new life really come shining through that place? Can God meet me in that place and not ask me to ignore the pain of that place, but actually tend to me in that place, and then almost like grow a whole new garden of life in that place for me? And this other one, this one is a lot about emerging from a hopeless place, or specifically depression. So the previous one and this one I painted in conjunction with a movement to raise awareness for just mental health for teenagers, the things that they are struggling with, which, by the way, it's a very human experience. I don't think mental health issues have like an age. We all struggle with different things. This one specifically was about how you can emerge, you can be on your way, and there can still be hope. You haven't fully arrived in that space where everything feels better and there's a lightness to your life and a peace and a joy. You can actually start to feel hope and experience new bits of life on your way towards light. And I'm not sure if you can tell from the photo, but I called this painting Tides. And the reason I called it Tides is because the rise and fall, I mean, those high places in our life and the deepest low places in our life. I also, he is walking towards, like, out of a tunnel towards a beach, and there's a massive oversized moon. That kind of white halo around his head signifies both his, I don't know, his deeply preciousness as a human being, but also he's moving towards the moon. And that moon, I guess for me, when my kids were little, I would say, when they would ask questions about God and stuff, I would say, you know, God kind of reminds me of the sun, or the sun reminds me of God, is what I mean. big, brilliant, holy, powerful. I mean, life sustaining. You can't touch it. It's too glorious. It's too magnificent. It's too big. And the moon reminds me of Jesus. Shows up in those dark places, reflects the light from the sun, reflects the light of God into our dark places. And you can look at it. You can look right at the moon. There's almost like there's a closer like ability. So that painting really signifies emerging out of a place of depression, and that if you are in that place, if you begin to look around and invite God into exactly the place where you are, I believe there are bits of life coming in and bits of light coming in, and that ultimately he wants to lead us out of those places from a place of love.
Yeah. I mean, I just love the way the connection with mental health, because actually that's something that's very close to my heart too. I've got people that I know who have got severe depression and anxiety, and someone who's very close to me who has struggled with those anxious thoughts, very anxious thoughts and suicidal thoughts. And sometimes when you're a onlooker, it's really difficult to know, when that person's so close to you, what do you do? How do you behave with them? And you're sometimes even lost for words. And I know that I've brought this person to my home and just said, right, I don't know what to say. Whatever I say they're just platitudes, really. And art seems to bridge that gap where you can just say, here's a canvas, let's just do a piece of art together, and let's forget all about these anxious thoughts that are buzzing around in your head, and let's just take our focus away from the past or the future. They say the past is usually where all the depression comes from, and the future is where all the anxious thoughts come from. And so we'll just focus on the present time and whatever we're doing. And it's I find art such like a breath of fresh air when you're in those difficult moments and you don't know what to say to that person who's got anxiety and depression and mental health issues. It's such a leveler, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, it is. And I think, so don't quote me on this, but I think I remember hearing there's a verse in the Psalms that says, don't sing songs to a broken heart. And it makes me think of what you're saying, how beautiful that is, that you would do with that person in your life, is to not necessarily say, it's okay, it's all right, it's okay, let's feel good, it's okay. More to say, that's okay where you are. Let's be here in the present moment and calm ourselves and ground a little bit and connect with each other and with something that we're creating. Because I do believe we were all created to create, and in a million different ways. It does not look like painting and drawing for every human being, but we were all created to create. And I think what a healing thing for that person in your life to sit not only with you, but then to focus on creating something that comes from themselves, or if they create it with you, to create something together, something that's new. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I mean, taking that step of creativity, that next step, and like putting yourself out there can be a bit daunting. I mean, I haven't done any art course or anything like that. I mean, the last time I did art was probably when, a qualification was when I was 16. But it's something that I'm passionate about. And when I go to church, I can't just sit still and just listen to the sermon or the Bible passage. I have to, get my book out and start doodling, and have all my pencils out on the seat next to me. And it must look really odd in church, but it's just the way I focus. But it still can be a challenge, kind of putting yourself out there.
So much.
Could you share your story and sort of how you got over those challenges of being public with your art?
Oh my goodness. Well, let me be really clear. I am not over it. It is a struggle because everything I create, there's like bits and pieces of my inner world and my thoughts and my convictions and my feelings, maybe some of my hurts, my beliefs. It's so personal, you know, that putting that out there can be so intimidating. It can be so intimidating. And so one of the instructors at Milan Art Institute was saying that perfectionism, or essentially, I guess you could also say control, is like the opposite of creativity. And so that's why I say I'm not over it. I am still learning. This one, where am I? It's inverted. This one over here, I cried every day and worked on it for weeks. And the whole process was, can I get out of the way a little bit to let not only some real stuff out, but not judge myself into a place of silence. Like, don't do it, don't make it, it's not good enough. Those things are very real. And if you're experiencing those, my heart goes out to you. I have felt it. And I don't think it's only about art. I think in life in general, those, you know, it's not going to be good enough. People won't receive it. Who are you to do it? Kind of like these disqualifying thoughts, like other people are better at that than you. Why would you do that? Any of that kind of thing. Learning to like set that stuff aside, and you can feel it, but not obey it. Like feel those things and then do it anyway it's a big challenge. And so I'm very much on that journey of putting my work out there. And then on like my Facebook page, I'll also a lot of times write about what was kind of going on when I was creating that painting. And it's really challenging, but I think it's beautiful. And I think if it even blesses one other person, it was worth doing. And essentially it blesses me. I'm going to be totally honest. It blesses me to allow that process to happen, to get in a way smaller or to step out of the way and just to let some things out in a really authentic way. So this painting, someone came and purchased a print of this and actually came direct, you know, to my in-house home studio to pick it up, told me her story and just cried. I mean, I created this. This is a black piece of paper and I used a white China marker and drew this image of a horse like emerging out of darkness, and I called it Seen, S-E-E-N, like to be seen. And she had a lot of trauma in her childhood, and a place of peace for her had been like these, if I'm remembering this correctly, it's been a little bit, but I think her neighbors had horses, and she would spend time quietly, like go out there and experience the beauty of those majestic animals and nature, and just get almost like reprieve from what she was going through. And she grew up with a feeling of, I just want to be seen. I want someone to see me and to notice me, and to be counted, to be valuable, for someone to want me to emerge out of the dark place that I feel like I've been. And so it was interesting that not only the title, but like the subject matter and kind of how it looked. I didn't realize this, but oh my goodness, it spoke so personally to her, from it being a horse to it being like darkness and light to the you know, the title, as I said. I think that's a really beautiful thing, and I think that only happens when we put ourselves out there in our own very imperfect way.
And just share the vulnerabilities and life, you know, where none of us are perfect. And I often find people who come on the Christian art journaling weekends that I do, you know, they're people that say, who are thinking about it, and they say, "What? I don't think I'll come because I'm not creative." I was just wondering, how would you respond to people like that? Because I kind of think everyone's creative, even if it
100%.
is just stick man. But you know,
I'm with you, and I think, who was it that said comparison is the thief of joy? I'm bummed I can't think of that. It's a beautiful quote. It is. Comparison is the thief of joy. There's some work behind me that someone else, a whole bunch of other people, can do so much better than I can. That isn't the main thing. The main thing is that we show up, is that we just have the courage to actually be seen, to put ourselves out there. And that might look like, you know, with art, that might look like in relationships, or a venture that we're thinking about, or an idea that we've had that we keep kind of telling ourselves it's not good enough, and actually taking the steps to put it in, like make it a reality. all different expressions. But I just think anytime we're looking around at other people, you will always find a sea of people who can do this better than you. That is not like, let's just all put that down. Be yourself and understand, like, if I could be authentically myself and allow some things to come through me, like I said, not just art, but all these different, allow some things to really come through me. What a beautiful thing that could be. And what might that do for me in my life? And what if that touched other people? I think it's really hard to do, is to stop looking around and comparing yourself. Do I measure up? Gosh, that's really hard to do. But we all actually, I think, feel that sometimes. And if we can get out of that mindset, a little bit like what you're talking about that you did with this person in your life, it's almost like if you can quiet all that and let some things out of yourself, not only is it healing and cathartic, what, you know, again, in any form, but there might be somebody like that woman who I didn't know very well, who came to my studio and felt like, I mean, she told me, I need this in my house to just remind me all the time that I am not invisible to God. And that I didn't think of that when I was even creating. I didn't think of her. And yet God can, like, I don't know, throw things out there and let God use them. Like, get them into play. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, amazing. It's been just really lovely talking to you. And I just want to know, how do people get to connect with you, get to learn more about you?
Sure. I try to keep it really simple. Just meghanrae.art on any social media and Facebook, Instagram, that kind of thing. And you can send me a message. That can be anything from, hey, I have this thing that means the world to me, and I'm trying to figure out how to create, you know, a custom piece of artwork that would represent this for me. Or, hey, I'd love to purchase something. I'd love to purchase a piece. Or I've also done speaking and spoken at women's events and different things like that. Not only women's events, but if that's something that you're looking for, reach out to me that way too.
Yeah. Wow.
Or if you're an artist and you just want to connect with another artist, you know what I mean? Like that too. That would be really great.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Meghan. It's lovely to talk to you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This is a total honor. I really admire you and what you do. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.